Hi, Brooke. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited to have you. First of all, can you introduce yourself and give us a bit of your background on your experience, particularly over the years with primates?
Yes, sure. My name is Brooke, and at present I work with several different organizations, one of them being Neotropical Primate Conservation, one of them being Animals Asia Foundation, and one of them, probably the most relevant for this conversation, is the Asia for Animals Coalition. I have worked with you, Liz, in a couple of different capacities,
Yes.
taking care of monkeys in Cornwall. So I started, sort of got into working with primates as a volunteer initially in 1999. And for a good number of years from that point forward, I worked with captive rescued monkeys from the pet trade usually, but sometimes some laboratory and some entertainment and things like that. Did that in England, in the Netherlands, little tiny bit in Texas, and also have done a couple of different bouts of studying primates. So I've got two different master's degrees, and of course my research in both cases had to do with primate issues one way or the other. One of them particularly, which was about the use of primates in entertainment.
This is exactly what we want to talk about today. So that's great. Yeah, you have such an amazing background, both in captive care and understanding, yeah, just understanding those linkages between how captive care, the primate pet trade links into other realms, let's say. So what I'm really interested in understanding is a bit more about your work, which links the use of primates and wild animals in the media, including kind of social media, and the pet trade. Can you talk to us about how those two things are linked in your view?
Sure. I think that there are a couple of separate ways that they're linked. And in a very, very fundamental way, one of the ways that they're very strongly linked is that the things that have to happen to a monkey, if you want to keep him as a pet, are the same things that have to happen to this same monkey or primate if you want to use them as an actor in a film or in your social media post, or as a selfie prop or something like this.
What are those
So
things?
there's
What are those
technical
things?
issue.
Oh, I'm sorry. What are the things that have to happen to the primates in order for them to end up in those kind of exploitative situations?
Yeah, so one of the most fundamental things is almost across the board, in almost every situation, you're going to have very, very young animals being removed from their mothers. Now, primates need to remain with their mothers for particularly long periods of time. Just like we are primates and we need to remain with our mothers for years. So do chimpanzees, so do macaques. And usually the animal, the youngster, is removed like really, really soon. They're infants and they're entirely dependent on their mothers. If you don't do this, then you don't wind up with an animal who's going to be like sweet and pliable and willing to do whatever you want them to do. For at least a period of time until they grow up and become very dangerous to you. So they're taken away, and we know, like, based on years and years and years of absolutely horrendous laboratory research on maternal deprivation on rhesus monkeys, we know for absolute certain that this is not just a little sad, it's incredibly damaging. It causes usually irreversible psychological damage. It can even hinder a monkey or a person or a primate's brain development. There are differences in the brains of maternally deprived primates than those who grew up in more like normal, stable environments. There's also social deprivation. So again, if a monkey's living a little bit more like a monkey would in a group doing monkey things, then you're not going to be able to have a little cuddle with him whenever you want, or have him on people's shoulders for photographs, or have them riding a bicycle in the circus, or acting in a film.
Yeah. So what you're saying is it's a fundamental requirement of using monkeys either in the pet trade, in the media, or these kind of photo ops. It's a fundamental requirement of that is removing them from their mums at a very early age and effectively keeping them isolated.
Yeah, yeah. And if there are exceptions to that, they are very, very rare. And we can say this based on what we know to be true in practice, but also based on what we know to be true about the way monkeys behave. It's just not gonna work. You know, a mother isn't gonna lend you her baby for people to have their photos taken with them or anything like that.
What can you tell us about the impact that has on the mothers? Because we think a lot about these babies used in these situations. What's the situation for the mum in these instances?
Well, it depends on where you are and what the situation is. So, for example, if you're in a place where primates are wild, there's a very good chance that the baby was captured by the mother being captured and probably killed. And in some places, she might become food. In some places, that's not the case. But quite often, like for the United States, for example, people will defend the practice of having a baby monkey or whatever, saying, no, it doesn't matter because he was born in captivity. It doesn't matter. The mother wasn't killed for this to happen in this case. But what has happened is the mother has just given birth to another baby to whom she has obviously, you know, the baby's very important to the mother, and the baby has been taken away from her, and then she will be used to breed again and again and again in many cases. It's inhumane. It's very inhumane and damaging to the mother as well as to the baby, and it's not fair. She doesn't get to be living a life that monkeys should be living. Neither does the baby.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we understand that about, you know, domesticated animals like puppies. You know, we all understand how terrible puppy farms are and what happens to the animals in there. I think it's just probably less understood with wild animals. Now, coming back to media, in what ways are they then sort of used in the media, and how are these things linked together aside from the actual treatment of the individual animals? How do these things feed into one another?
Yeah. Okay. So another very strong link, but one that is only becoming like really recognized as a fact in more recent years, is that the way primates are used in media, whatever that media may be, does have a good influence on the way people, not a good influence, a big influence on the way people understand what primates are, what they need, whether they're in danger in the wild, what is suitable, all of these. Since, I don't know, at least the past 10 years, there have been a series of studies coming out that demonstrate clear. Each one demonstrates well, but together it's a really clear picture that when it's normal for a person to see a chimpanzee, for example, in a photograph with a human, maybe wearing a little hat or something like that, that chimpanzee is almost certainly going to be maybe not an infant, but a very young chimpanzee. People come to think that, one, chimpanzees are fine alongside people, not dangerous, can be happy, and also that they're not endangered in the wild, which is, of course, absolutely not true in the slightest. They are. People come to understand that these things are suitable and acceptable. So nowadays, for example, if you see a photograph in social media of a monkey being kept as a pet, I'm gonna use an example of it was a macaque dressed in a very tight snowsuit in a big snowbank in Russia. I think this was some years ago. And the macaque was really, really constrained in this snowsuit. And as a person who understands a little bit about the way macaques normally behave, it's clear to me that the macaque was completely panicking, really, really panicking. But if you never want to look at social media comments anyway, of course, but if you do, or if you even try to make a comment about how it's inappropriate, you just see that just thousands of people are 100% sure that it's fine. The monkey's happy. It's obvious the monkey's happy. I've seen monkeys wearing suits before in lots of movies. The whole thing. and it just perpetuates the cycle. And you also start to see people commenting a lot about how much they want one. I want one, I want one, I want one. And just saying you want one doesn't always, of course, lead to getting one. But of course, it predisposes you to doing so if the opportunity arises.
And it also normalizes the idea of these animals kind of out in the world and being available and being something that is someone that is appropriate to own or kind of control, right?
Yes, yes. And also things like, speaking of like normalizing, smiling, like we are smiling. We're showing our teeth, we're making a certain facial expression. There you go. And of course, we're all primates. And when a primate is giving a big grin, everything always, of course, depends to a degree on context and the details of things. But for the most part, this research I conducted some years ago on the way primates are used in media. I looked at all of the film trailers I could get my hands on and like measured how much of the time monkeys and apes were shown as, like, in quotes, smiling in these trailers. And I think it was something like 20% of the time they were shown with these big grins. And in all of the species I was looking at, these grins most often mean that the animal is really frightened, really nervous, being really submissive, something along those lines. You know, people can do it too sometimes. There's like a sort of submissive kind of smile that people do. It is related. And of course, sometimes if monkeys are laughing, which they do, they will show their teeth as well. But this isn't what's shown in films. It's like a fear grin.
Yeah. And that's kind of it. That's an evolutionary thing, isn't it? That, you know, sort of showing teeth. And we recognize that in dogs. So we don't think that when dogs bare their teeth that they're smiling. We understand that to be either fearful or aggressive. And isn't it interesting how we then kind of flip that around when it comes to primates? Almost willful ignorance.
They show it to you. People see it so often in films, and I'm not saying that every movie that comes out has a monkey actor in it, but at least over the time period I studied, I'm going to follow up on this research sometime soon when I have the time to do so, whenever that may be. But I studied, I don't know, it was like up until 2013, and I studied how frequently they were used, what species were used, and stuff like that. And over that time period, up through 2013, from I think it started in 1990, it didn't diminish. The use of primates in films didn't diminish. I have no like proof that it has changed or not changed since then, but just from seeing what I see, maybe not so much in movies, but like, you know, Netflix, BBC, for example, they continue to use them, and they often show them smiling, and people genuinely learn. People learn that that's a happy monkey.
Yeah,
they might be learning something that isn't true, but they learn that, and then they know that. And then when somebody tries to tell them it's not true, that you know, that chimp in that video is being abused by just the fact that he's in that video and being used in this way, it can't be true because he's smiling. It can't be true because the people who made the video love animals. It can't, you know. So
yeah,
there's a lot to talk
about. There's a lot to kind of unpack with it. And so, you know, it's sort of thinking about how primates have been used in, say, movies and TV programs. It's obviously certainly still happening. But I think one of the things I feel has grown, and you've obviously done far more research, mine is just anecdotal, is the use of primates on social media, and particularly kind of these sort of influencer accounts on, say, Instagram, where they're literally set up in order to show the world these kind of young, usually infant, tiny baby animals who are being kept in these sort of human homes. And how have you got that sort of same sense that is an area that now is increasing?
Yes, I do, very much so. And it actually kind of leads on to even darker stuff as well. So we see a lot of videos and posts of that nature, and of course people always want to do something about it. The people who understand what the problem is want to do something about it. Quite often they'll try to argue the case in the comments. occasionally they'll get through to somebody who learns and understands, which is really, really great. But far, far, far more often, it seems that this type of content is increasing demand. Like, and you can see that with, you remember the tickling slow loris stuff
Yeah,
that
yeah.
and company sort of did this whole research project on how that tickling slow loris video that came out quite some time ago now, but it's just a great example because there's this research behind it, how it really, really, really elicited so much misunderstanding and so much wanting them as a pet. And
Can you just explain what the video is? Do an impression if you like to show.
Can't do a very good slow loris impression, so if it was a baboon, I'd do.
Sorry, I'm getting silly.
It's no good for me. So the slow loris is basically just somebody's pet, and cute, just as cute as can be, you know. They're nocturnal animals, they've got these big eyes, and they use this body language that we're just not familiar with. We don't know what they're doing. So somebody is like sort of tickling the slow loris, and the slow loris's arms are going up like this, and it kind of looks like he's going, ah, like, I love it. But he's not. Ananacaris is a slow loris expert and knows very well that, you know, they're like one of the only maybe the only venomous primate on Earth, and one of the ways they like, it has something to do with their arms. Like they have glands on their arms that they have to like lick. It's to get the poison to work, something like this. I don't know the mechanics of it, but basically that loris is doing is terrified and doing this really defensive move. But people don't want to hear that because it's cute, and they've already got the story established in their minds that it's cute. And once people know something, and the word knowing it has less, you know, people know that it's fine, and
relative truths, yeah.
Fine. Yeah. We know that those sorts of videos and posts do harm. When people go to report those to social media channels, the reports, nothing happens, you know, nothing happens. I think Instagram made an attempt to put in something about like information about how wild animals don't always make good pets or something like that, but that hasn't stopped the problem. That's just a really, you know, these posts go on and on, and there's kind of a much darker related problem in that there's like this vast amount of full on disgusting intentional animal cruelty going on social media, which is something that my colleagues and I and a nice group of volunteers with the Asia for Animals Coalition are researching right now. Born Free is actually part of the Asia for Animals Coalition, so in a sense it's work too. So but there, you know, fake rescues, there have been a few reports that have come out recently about fake rescues where people just set up they set up like a dramatic situation where there's a gibbon being rescued from a snake, but
oh wow, I hadn't heard of this. Wow,
they're awful. So we're in the process of documenting all of these, and a report will be coming out, we hope, in you know, a couple of months. It's called SMAC, Social Media Animal Cruelty Coalition, part of the Asia Coalition. But yeah, so all this like cute content has, like, I don't know if the cruelty content was there before, but the cute content has morphed with like, I know how to get lots of hits. Let's create this dramatic situation for people who love animals. Oh, good, that gibbon's being rescued from that nasty snake. In fact, the animals have both been put in that situation, and these videos get lots and lots and lots of views. The number, I won't tell you the number right now because it's not finalized yet, but the number of views that we have recorded of this, what we're calling cruelty content, it's astronomical. Absolutely.
Wow. And does that translate to monetization? I don't really understand how. So this is a money-making thing. I don't really understand how influencers work. I have a very small number of followers on Instagram. Not great at it, but you know, so this is a financial thing that people are doing.
This is a financial thing. I'm sure, I mean, not all of them are monetized, but a lot of them are monetized. Okay, so it feels good to get lots of likes and lots of followers. So I'm sure that's the motivation for some of it. But yeah, it can be lucrative. It can be really lucrative if you start to get enough followers. And well, also what happens is that people who are outraged by what they're seeing, understandably so, if they understand that it's fake or that it's cruel or something like this, people who are outraged by it will often share it widely, saying, look at how horrible this is, which is something that's so easy. I've done it myself in the past, but it's something that it's really kind of important to think about before you do, because every time it's shared, every time it's viewed, every time it's commented upon, it is increasing in popularity and potentially increasing in profitability. So
Wow.
what we are trying to do is to just get a conversation going with
Mhm.
these platforms, and it's really, really hard to do. But just talk to them about how we can help them actually screen for this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, do you
Yeah.
think that, see, that's really interesting. So the one of the challenges presumably is you want to engage with this content to help kind of spread the word and raise awareness, but by engaging with it, you're kind of coming into conflict with people who are perhaps not open to learning in that space. You're also potentially supporting the kind of pushing that up the ratings and its visibility. So do you think, I guess, what is the solution? Does it just sit outside? Does it sit outside of these platforms? Is there a solution with the platforms? Is there a solution working with the media companies? Or do we just have to get this banned? Do we have to get ownership banned? What's the solution, Brooke?
Well, getting
No
ownership
pressure.
banned is a great part of the solution. Really good part of the solution. Of course, it's not the whole thing. You know, there will always be, you know, things going on in other countries, illegally, whatever. Like it's
Sure.
the social media platforms don't do very well screening for illegal activities. So you know, you will still see some of it. But yeah, I mean, if it's absolutely clear that you may not do this, then it's clear that you may not do this. When you have laws that are wishy-washy, or laws that say, oh, you can't do this except if this and this, then maybe you can and nobody knows, and like there's a video of the person with their pet and officially you're not supposed to do it, but maybe they
Maybe they're an
can.
exception, or they have the license that you need in order to be allowed to do it. Or I think from my background, from a legal background, if it's legal, it must be okay. It wouldn't be if it were cruel. How is it legal? This idea that laws are just and laws have the input of animal welfare experts, and it wouldn't be allowed if if it was cruel.
They might have a little bit of input from animal welfare experts, but they also have a lot of input from people with a lot of interest in keeping things going the way they are.
Yes.
Perhaps people who just love keeping monkeys, perhaps people who make a lot of money by that industry existing, for whatever reason. Yeah, that's a great point. Just because it's legal doesn't in the but yeah, I just think a clear cut ban on it. Like, so in the United States, obviously in some states, the state that I come from originally, Massachusetts, it's just not legal. You just can't have a monkey. Straightforward, fine. Where you are presently, I don't think it's that way, is it? It's
no. There are certain regulations around it, but it is pretty much I think there's 22 states at the moment that have some kind of ban or restriction on primates as pets, and then obviously.
And last I knew,
sorry.
Is it Missouri or Mississippi that has like literally no regulation whatsoever, and you can keep a chimp?
There's a number of states that have that for sure. And then we see tragedies like we saw in the last week, where a pet chimpanzee turns and attacks Buck, and I forget which state he was in, but turns and attacks his owner, and the owner themselves called the police and said, you need to shoot him, because there is no, we can't get out of this situation unless you kill him. And then of course that's putting, we're working on the Captive Primate Safety Act at the moment, which would ban the private keeping of primates as pets, and also interactions with them in these kind of entertainment settings. But it's such a dangerous it's such a dangerous practice. So if you take it outside of the animal welfare, but that situation with Buck, for example, so the owner could have been killed because a chimpanzee can quite easily kill a human being. But then also what you're creating is this incredibly dangerous situation for anybody in the vicinity, and also for the law enforcement officers who are then called in to deal with the situation. They don't have any training. They don't know how to deal with a chimp. And so what happened was Buck, the chimpanzee, was killed. And that's happened far too often. Yeah, absolutely.
But to take it down to like smaller primates as well, though, I mean, okay, well, it seems to me it's obvious that a chimp is dangerous, but actually it probably isn't, because a lot of people learn that chimps are not very big because they see the young ones acting in films.
Mm-hmm.
But assuming people know that a chimpanzee is an incredibly dangerous animal, they might think, oh, well, a monkey's fine. They're only like the size of a big cat or something like that. But let's, it's a very, very good point for primates of all sizes. And I have to say, my first experience with a monkey ever in my life was when I was a little kid at the county fair. And it was, I now know, a capuchin monkey crawling all over my head and sticking his fingers up my nose. I was thrilled. I was a kid. I was really, really thrilled by that. But when I think about what I know about capuchins, even little capuchins nowadays, how dangerous, how incredibly dangerous that was. I mean, maybe the capuchin had his or her teeth removed. I don't know. I can't remember the details about it. But as the welfare issues, the safety issues, they're
and also, I think the risk of zoonotic disease spread, which now, of course, the entire world is far more au fait, unfortunately, with what can happen when zoonotic diseases pass from humans to animals or vice versa. And just the apps. I mean, look, we're still in the throes of this pandemic, and so many people have lost their lives and livelihoods as a result. So perhaps 2 years ago, if we talked about zoonotic diseases, people might not have heard of it or really understood what it meant. But even the tiniest monkey can pass diseases to humans. One thing that absolutely baffles me is that a lot of the monkeys that we rescue here at Born Free are macaques. And it's known that macaques, the majority of macaques, can be carriers of herpes B virus. Now, if herpes B virus is contracted by a human being, untreated, it is fatal. Absolutely fatal. You are dead in 70 to 80% of cases. Now that one stat, and macaques are one of the most commonly kept pet monkeys.
My understanding is that it's not even possible to reliably test for it. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, you can do blood tests for it, but effectively it affects, it's a neurological disease. And it's kind of, if you begin showing signs, you can take antivirals, but you cross your fingers and hope. But that stat in and of itself, and people are buying pet monkeys for their children. People are buying these pet monkeys, and you see on Instagram, you've got all these baby macaques in diapers and crawling all over people, and it's just, take away the welfare side, but just the threats that these animals pose are just incredible, and the threats that we pose to them. I think that's another thing, talking about particularly thinking about the capuchins and thinking about these young vulnerable animals who haven't had the upbringing from their mothers, the same as humans, having that kind of immune system sort of strengthened by being able to feed from your mother, as a monkey would naturally do. That's also a known science. It helps, young animals develop a healthy immune system. Now, none of these monkeys have had that. Therefore, they're potentially immune compromised right from the beginning. And we're around them with our sniffles and our colds and our flus. And that's incredibly dangerous to them. So yeah, just so many things. It's just kind of baffling.
People need to be aware that pandemics don't just start in other countries. They happen where people and wild animals are having a lot of intense contact, wherever that may be.
Absolutely.
So that can just as easily happen within the primate pet trade of Texas as it can happen halfway across the world. It's real.
For sure. So, okay, we're kind of I've gone off on a few tangents here. So we should probably wrap up. What do I want to close with? I guess I think the answer is probably obvious, but someone out there watching this, thinking of getting a pet monkey and thinking they can kind of mitigate these things, or that they will do a good job. What would you say to them?
I'll try to keep my answer brief, but I can talk about this specific thing for a really long time, because sometimes when we people who work for primate welfare see people keeping pet monkeys, we get angry about it, right? And that, that there are reasons to do so, but I want to emphasize that I do kind of understand, in a sense, why you initially would want to.
Yeah.
What I described a few minutes ago about my first experience with a monkey at the Barnstable County Fair in whatever year, a long time ago. I was a kid, and I desperately wanted a monkey to cuddle. And that wasn't about, I thought it was because I loved monkeys.
Yeah.
I thought it was because I loved monkeys. And you just have to think about what is love, right? And love involves caring about the welfare of the other person, in this case, a monkey person, as much or more than you care about your own needs or wants. So you might need or want to cuddle this animal, but think about the animal. Think about what you are doing. You may think that you may be different. You can keep your monkey happy. And maybe you can keep your pet monkey a little happier than some other people can. It's possible, who knows? But what you're doing is you're depriving that animal so horrifically of all the things that a monkey is evolved to do, to need, to want. You cannot take the place of a monkey's natural environment, a natural social group, any of these things. You just can't do it. And it's just really not fair to do it. It's not fair. It's not kind, and it's not love. It isn't love. It's if it is love, it's very poorly expressed love. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. I think that's a really great way of putting it, is putting them first. And literally nobody needs a monkey.
Correct. Literally nobody needs a monkey, except for maybe a monkey.
Yeah. Yeah. Monkeys.
A mother monkey might need
to stay with their baby, for sure. Yeah. All right, Brooke, this has been awesome. Yeah, we kind of went off a few places. It was supposed to be a much shorter chat, but I kind of like where we went with it. So thank you so much for taking the time. It's always great to speak to you.
Very welcome. Thank you for asking me.